Before the COVID-19 pandemic, digital technology played a pretty minimal role in the operations of the W.H. Stark House. Everything revolved around a set 45-minute tour model, in which a small group of people would be guided through the home, with occasional events and programs that featured the house decorated in holiday or other themed settings. But shutdowns and restrictions from the COVID-19 pandemic meant that we lost the ability to access our space. This forced us to think entirely different about how we could reach our existing audience and how we could potentially reach new audiences. We weren't alone in the field. Museums across the nation were having to figure out what worked during this time. The American Alliance of Museums published 4 ways museums can successfully leverage digital content during coronavirus, listing social media series and campaigns, real-time live streams, virtual tours, and virtual and augmented reality as the start of exploring digital tools. While this was applicable for institutions that had extensive reserves of existing digital content, it was more difficult for small museums that were essentially starting from scratch. After a great deal of trial and error, we ultimately agree with Hannah Gaston, author of 12 Lessons Learned about Virtual Programming in the Pandemic, on her points that, ultimately, you don't need fancy technology. Your programs will change, and that can be a really good thing, and virtual offerings will often be successful in ways you don't expect. While we were excited, if not a bit scared, of the ways digital technology was being used, we did feel like one thing that wasn't working was that people were losing the benefit of tangible experiences by going solely digital. So we created a hybrid program, Summer Reading with the W.H. Stark House. Literacy had always been important for the Stark family, so we chose a book from the collection, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. For this program, each registrant received a book specific to their reading level, worksheets, and crafts to help them explore and think critically about the story. Online, we published read-along chapter videos, history tidbits about the context of the story, as well as additional copies of each activity and links to a PDF version of the book. This program was used not only in our local community, but the online components were used by several families from across the nation. For the first time, we really thought about how programs on our site can extend beyond the walls of the historic home or grounds. This understanding and the following programs led us to recently propose an organizational change that de-emphasized the 45-minute tour model in favor of a more dynamic model based on events and programs. These will continue to incorporate the house, its objects, and Stark family history, but will not be limited to the physical structure or site. Digital technology is increasingly necessary to understand and utilize if your site wants to stay relevant. You can expect to see much more hybrid programming, including virtual history school programs, STEAM programs for young learners, and more in this digital/tangible model. You can also expect to see the use of digital technology in on-site programs in order to encourage creative new ways to interact with history. Stay tuned, and thanks so much. Before the